Hi guys, welcome back to the Art of Server. So this is going to be my last video talking about this Icy Dock unit in my HP Z820. So if you're new to this channel and you haven't been following my videos, basically it's been quite a challenge getting this Icy Dock unit, which has 5 3.5-inch drive bays, into the HP Z820. I had to modify the Z820 and I had to modify the Icy Dock in order to get this to fit. So if you haven't seen those videos, I'll leave a link to those videos down in the video description below and go ahead and check that out. But basically, we finally got everything to physically fit together. And in fact, I've already installed some hard drives in here, as you can see right there. So there are a total of 4 hard drives, and I'm leaving this one bay right here vacant, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But basically, I've got hard drives in here, and I've also got hard drives in here as well. And so today I want to wrap this project up by showing you guys the final step was basically cabling this with the HP Z820's onboard LSI SAS controller. So in order to get that done, I've made a custom cable. So this here is a custom cable that I made to connect those 5 drive bays in the Icy Dock to the Z840. So you see I have some custom labels. So I have like a SATA 0, and that's for that 5th slot that's vacant right now. And I have these labels for SAS 5 or 4, 5, 6, and 7. And basically I have the same thing on the other end. And so I'm going to be connecting using this cable, this custom cable that I made, to connect the onboard SAS controller and one of the SATA ports to that Icy Dock unit. So if you guys haven't seen this before, basically the way I make these cables is using these really thin SATA cables. And so these are super micro CBL 0481L SATA cables, and they're just super thin, so they're really easy to kind of form into the shape that you need. And then because they're so thin, you can put a sleeve over them, and basically that's what I did here. And then I zip tied the ends. I also have some zip ties in between, but then I just put some electrical shrink wrap at the end here to kind of finish it off. So anyway, if you guys are interested in doing something similar, or you'd like to get cables like this, go check out the link to this product, which is in my eBay store, and I'll leave that link down in the video description. So if you're interested, go check that out. All right, so in order to install or cable up the Icy Dock, obviously you need that SAS cable, but in addition to that, this is going to be the power source for the Icy Dock. And you can see this is just a SATA power rail, and it has 3 SATA connectors, but this is really meant for having separate 5.25-inch devices here. And since this is one single device, all the power connectors are down here. Let me see if I can give you guys a better view down here, but basically all the power connectors are down here. And so the problem with that is that this the bottom 2 connectors will fit just fine, but that third one isn't going to reach far enough. And so I got an extra SATA power extension to connect to that, so that I can connect that third power connection. But by the way, I don't really think I absolutely need all 3 connections, because I think each SATA power plug is rated for about 50 watts, and I'm spinning up 4 hard drives in there, so I think that's going to be maximum probably like 80 to 90 watts that I need. So 2 SATA power connectors should be enough to cover basically 100 watts or less. So, but anyway, I just figured it might be safer in case I do plug in a 5th hard drive, or I don't know, if I use some hard drives that consume more power than usual, like sometimes SAS drives will consume a little bit more power than SATA drives. But anyway, I think if you didn't have this extension, you might be able to get away with it just with two of the SATA power connectors. But I'm going to go ahead and connect all three. Okay. So anyway, that's what we're going to do to get this wired up. And so I'm going to set the camera on a tripod here so that I can free my hands up and then show you guys how I'm going to wire all this together. All right, guys. Hopefully you guys have a clear view of what's going on here. And so this cable, I've set it up such that this one is going to be a little bit longer. And that's because it's going to connect to the SATA port right there. And the other four connections are going to the onboard SAS ports down here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start just connecting all this together. So we've got the SAS 4 connector right there. Then we'll go with the SAS 5. And then SAS 6. Okay, and then finally SAS 7. All right, and then I'm going to put the SATA 0 connector here to the gray SATA connector down there. Okay. And what I'm going to do is route, let me get that cable out of the way. I'm just going to route it right here, up, and behind the fan of the Icy Dock unit. All right, so the plan is to basically route it kind of in this channel right here behind the Icy Dock unit. So I'm going to go ahead and shift the Icy Dock unit now to kind of get that back. Let me just make sure it's, so I'm trying to get this to go behind it. And remember, this Icy Dock unit is going to go all the way until it hits that DIMM slot. So, yep, okay, it locked in. And all the SATA connectors are up here at the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug them in. So I'm going to use the SATA 0 is going to be the one at the very back here. Okay, and then I'm going to connect, this is SAS 7 next, and SAS 6, and then SAS 5, and then SAS 4. Okay, so I've adjusted these cables specifically so that they don't protrude out in this area too much, so that when the fan shroud goes over this thing, it's not going to catch any of these cables. All right, so the next thing is, again, this power. And as I said, this first connector up here is just not long enough. So I'm going to extend that with this extender here. All right, so let's see. I think I'm going to try to route this behind the SATA cables, actually. Okay, so I'm going to have this kind of come around down here, and then I'm going to have this plug in to the power connectors down here. So the first one, let's see here. There we go. And then the one in the middle, I'm going to connect to this just because it's a little bit longer. All right. And then I'm going to connect the last one to this one here. All right, so that's everything wired up. Oh, let me stow away these GPU power connections that I had removed these in order to make space to run that cable down there. Okay, so now we got to see if the fan shroud's actually going to fit. All right, here's the unit. So just gonna slide it in like that, and then yep. So as you can see, it fit right in without any problems at all. And then of course, if you want to, you can put on this cover here as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so everything is ready to go. So let me change the camera angle so you guys can see this system boot up. All right, guys, let's go ahead and power this thing on. So one thing I wanted to point out that I thought was kind of interesting is that the HP Z840's LED lighting is this bluish color, which actually matches the blue that shows up here quite well, so that's kind of cool. Although one thing you might notice, and I think this will come through in the camera, is that for whatever reason this LED is a lot brighter than the other four. They're all lit, but this one is just really bright. I don't know why that is. So I don't know. And actually I've tested out this slot too, and this one is also really bright. So these two LEDs for whatever reason are just really bright. I don't know if there's maybe oh, you can see the drive spin up happening because they're now they're blinking. So that's the LSI controller basically spinning up those drives. So yeah, anyway, I just thought it was kind of cool that the LED color basically matches the power button on this machine, so that's kind of cool. I just wish the LED brightness was more kind of uniform across the board, but anyway, but you can see everything is things are spinning up and you can see those lights blinking. All right, so here I am booting Fedora, so I'm gonna go ahead and just get that booted up. Yep, so you can just want to give you guys a view of what the activity LEDs look like. All right, so the system is booted up, and at this point I'm gonna log into the system and switch over to the screen recorder so you guys have a better view. Alright guys, so here I am logged into the machine. Let's go ahead and launch a couple of terminals. I'll stretch these out so that hopefully you guys can see a little bit better. Alright, so let me just escalate to root, and we'll start with LSCSI. So you can see that I can see a total of 8 drives, and I've actually already created a ZFS pool with these, so I'll go ahead and show you guys that. So here is my RAID Z pool, and you can see that these 8 drives are the same 8 drives that are up here. They're basically the same model, you can see there. Alright, so yeah, basically everything is working. Alright, so earlier I had mentioned that I have the 5th drive bay in that Icy Dock vacant right now, and that is the slot that is connected to the onboard SATA controller. So let me explain to you why I have that set up that way and what the use case is. Alright guys, so what I have in front of you here is what's called a Atomos HDMI recorder, and for some of my footage I have cameras when they're mounted overhead and stuff like that. This is basically what they record on. And with a unit like this, and for those of you, I'm no expert in videography or anything like that, but so for some of you who are professionals in that field, you probably are familiar with these things. But more and more digital cameras are now recording to SSDs directly. And so this would be kind of one of those cases where, although this is not the camera itself, but the camera would output HDMI images to this recorder, and this recorder would then record that footage onto an SSD. And so normally when you offload the footage from the SSD, you'd have to use a USB adapter and all that kind of stuff. But what I thought would be interesting is, imagine that I've recorded some footage on this SSD and now I want to offload it. And you can use a USB 3 adapter, but I just find like they're just not as fast as I hope they would be. So I thought it would be cool to have a native SATA connection to this SSD in order to offload and transfer files to and from this SSD. Now this obviously is a 2.5-inch format, and it's not the 3.5-inch bay, but here's where Icy Dock comes up with some great ideas. So this here is an Icy Dock product. Alright, so this is the Icy Dock MB882SP-1S-3B, and basically what this is a adapter that allows you to quickly and easily put a 2.5-inch SSD in here and basically make it into a 3.5-inch format. And so the thought is that I can pop that SSD into this thing and then slide this into that 5th vacant bay that's connected to the SATA controller. And by doing so, I'll have a direct SATA connection from that SSD into the system without having to go through some sort of USB adapter and stuff like that. And so just to demonstrate to you guys how easy it is to use this thing, I'm going to, since I'm holding a camera with the other hand, I'm going to have to show you how to load the SSD. So first of all, there is this cover on the top, and this basically you just pry on that lever, and there's this cover piece that comes off, and this is designed basically to kind of hold the SSD in. And so now I'm just going to, with one hand, slide. Now just to kind of show you the mechanism here, so there are these kind of plastic springy things, and so that way you can actually install SSDs of different thicknesses, right? So I know most consumer SSDs are of the same thickness, but there are other SSDs that are a little bit thicker, and so this should be able to accommodate that. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this in. All right, and so I just press it all the way into that connector, and then I can put this. All right, so that's it. It's as easy as that. I literally just did that with one hand. So I think this is easy enough that it makes sense if you want to offload data off of a 2.5-inch SSD using that 3.5-inch bay. Now, there are other adapters like this which require some screws or something like that, which I think is like too cumbersome. But with this really innovative kind of adapter that Icy Dock has made, I think this is easy enough that it makes the use case viable. And so I can now go ahead and plug that into this slot here. So let me go ahead and do all this with a single hand. All right, so let me just slide that in there. All right, and I should be able to just, yep, you can see the blue light. That means the drive is getting detected right now. So let's go back to the screen recorder and show you that I can see that SSD. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and let's run LSCSI. And you can see that the Samsung 860 drive here is showing up as /dev/sdj. And let's see if we can read the smart data off of it, for example. And sure enough, we can. So yeah, so that drive is now connected to the system through that Icy Dock adapter, and I should be able to easily pop that drive in when I need to offload data, and I can pull that drive out and put it back in my HDMI recorder quite easily. Now let's do a demonstration of the speed for copying that data off. So here's the Ninja V. So all the drives that are formatted for the Ninja recorder identify itself as a Ninja V here. And so here I have a fairly large file, 42.5 gigabyte file. I'm gonna copy that over to my video folder, which is on an SSD. And so let's see how fast I can copy this file. Alright, so as we're talking, already 2 gigabytes have passed, and there goes another gigabyte. So it looks like it's pretty fast. I'm going to wait for it. This program will calculate kind of the average speed. Alright, so here it is. We are getting about 456 megabytes per second. So I think that's, or 460 now. Well, it keeps going up, 470. Alright, so it keeps getting better here. So I think that's pretty much the maximum speed that's expected for this particular SSD. So this is, remember, it's just a SATA 3 SSD, and so I think this is pretty much close to what you can expect for copying a large file off of the SSD using a native SATA connection. Alright, so let me go ahead and just cancel that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this file, and just for comparison, I'm going to take that SSD out of the Icy Dock adapter. I'm going to put it on a USB drive or USB to SATA adapter, and just kind of show you the difference. Alright, so let me go ahead and unmount that drive, and I'll go ahead and pull it out. Alright guys, so I've put that SSD onto a USB adapter here, and I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the USB 3 port. The other way around. Alright, so that should be, let's see, it should light up. Yep. So this should now be connected to the machine via USB 3. So let's go make that transfer again through the USB adapter, just for comparison to the native speed that's available by putting it into that slot. That USB drive has popped up again as the Ninja V here, and again this is that 42.5 gigabyte file. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to paste it exactly as I did before. Alright, so it's going fairly fast. I'm going to wait for it to calculate the average transfer speed here, which should show up in a few moments here. Alright, here we go. So we are transferring at 304 megabytes per second. So this is definitely quite a bit slower than the native speed. Now this is not too bad. 304 megabytes per second is not bad, but definitely the 470 megabytes per second that we were getting earlier via the native SATA connection, I think is definitely quite a bit faster. So alright, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. It's averaging about 304 right now. So alright, I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys kind of the contrast and kind of my thinking behind, you know, a use case for that fifth slot connected to the SATA controller on board. Alright, so one other thing I want to share with you guys is that I put the SSD back in this fifth slot, and you'll notice that the LED remains lit and there's no activity with that SSD right now. So with SATA drives, with this bay connected to that SATA controller, the onboard SATA controller, the behavior is that the light remains on when there is a drive in there, and it will blink with activity. Whereas the other 4 slots where I have a SATA drive connected in here to the onboard SAS controller, the LEDs remain off when there's no activity, and they do activate and blink when there is IO activity on these drives. So that's one difference I wanted to kind of point out. That's, I think, a little bit subtle and not really mentioned in any documentation or anything like that. I just want to make you guys aware of that in case you might be mixing SAS and SATA drives. It might throw you off a little bit in terms of how that LED behaves in this Icy Dock unit. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, you like this sort of stuff, consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss my videos. Also, if you want to support my channel, go check out my eBay store. I'll leave a link down in the video description. I've got the best selection of pre-flashed IT mode HPA SAS controllers for your ZFS, TrueNAS, or Unraid builds, so go check out the link down in the video description. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.